So yeah, for those who do not know what's going on, recently in one of my fun test streams, I was trying to see what the highest number I can achieve in a single hit. And I got around like 4,000-ish. And I thought, that's pretty good. That's higher than what it was in 1.5. Yeah, that's not even close to the cap. So I was doing some experimentation, and Mr. Penguinpanda did a very good video explaining how damage calculation works in 1.5. But in 1.6, something called Innate Enchants was added. And it completely changes the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I have a little test arena. We got a little slimes catch. There's different ways to increase your damage in this game. Through rings, through buffs, and through enchants, basically. So you have the ruby ring, which increases your attack by 10. Iridium band does the same thing. Jade increases your crit power by 10% as well. The warrior ring, whenever you kill an enemy, has a chance of giving you plus 10 attack. Each attack gives you an extra flat 3 damage. So if you have warrior ring and magic rock candy, you will have plus 15 attack, which is the equivalent of an extra 45 damage to the base. So you can just combo things. Ginger ale here, luck increases your chance to critically hit, I believe. So we throw in a luck buff there. So these are like the buffs that can like directly impact you, that you can just consume day to day and ring swap. But now we're gonna go into what you can do at the forge. So everybody knows at the forge you can already enchant your stuff with a bunch of shenanigans. This is the mini forge. You get it through the new mastery system. So if you give a aquamarine to a dagger, it gives crit chance. If you give a jade to a dagger, it gives crit power. And if you give ruby to a dagger, it just increases the base damage. So you can do a bunch of things. It turns out for basically every weapon, if you're going for the maximum amount of damage, you always do triple rubies. The reason why is because jades are extremely inefficient to put on. Because aquas just is crit chance, so if you're trying to do the most amount of damage, aquas just don't mean anything. But putting on 3 jades, like 4 crit power. 6 crit power from that. And then you get 4. It's extremely bad, where you can just put on 3 rubies. And it just increases the base damage. It's much more apparent on like higher damage weapons, so that hardly increased, but as you can see with the cudgel, it went up by 4 damage each time. It's much more important when it comes to how the multiplier works. There is one bug that I want to show off that I found out recently. If you triple enchant any weapon with 50 crit power with triple aquas, so it started with 50 crit power, and then you unforge it, it now just has 49. Don't know why. It just has 49 though. It just gets rid of 1 crit power for no reason. So yes, those are enchants. That said, we are going to move on to kind of a little bit of a damage test to show you why innate enchants kind of break the damage values of this game. So I will preface this. I do have Desperado. This is to more show how much like the crit damage actually matters. But I'm gonna take 2 weapons. Here's a burglar shank. It has 2% or plus 2 crit chance. And then if you add up the 25 crit power and the 25 crit power of the innate enchant, you would in theory have 50 crit power, right? So it'd be very similar to this crystal dagger, which has 1 more higher base damage, the same crit chance, and also 50 crit power. These weapons should basically be next to identical in terms of damage, just looking at these 2. I'm going to equip 2 aqua rings. This is just to get more crits. And then the Statue of Blessing, I have it specifically on a day that gives me more crit chance, just to show you guys that I'm critting more. So we're gonna go in with the burglar shank first. And in theory, these should do the same amount of damage on the crits. So I'm gonna go hit the slimes. We got an 84, 74, 104, 90-ish, 100, 126. Not bad crits. Now we're gonna switch to the crystal dagger. In theory, we should do the same amount of damage per crit. 80, 104, 64, 72, 80, 104. On average, that was a little lower. You saw a few 70s. For whatever reason, has a higher damage cap. Straight up has a higher damage cap than the crystal dagger. And in theory, the crystal dagger should do more damage based off of stats. In theory, it's the exact same stats. So why is the crystal dagger doing less damage? It's because of how the crit power of the innate enchants is combined. Every 25 crit power is going to add 0.5 to your crit multiplier. Every weapon has a base crit multiplier of 3. Every 25 crit power adds 0.5. So in theory, these should both have 4 crit power, or a crit multiplier. But the crystal dagger has 4, and the burglar shank has much more. And the reason why is because the innate enchant is multiplicative, or it multiplies. It's not additive. From what I understand, instead of the burglar shank having 4 crit power, it would have 3.5, and then you would times that by 1.5. And then, so it would have a crit multiplier of 5.25, which is higher than 4. These are low damage weapons. What happens if we take it all the way to the max and put on this setup? So this is a Dragon's Tooth Club that has the 75 innate crit power. It has Bug Killer and is triple enchanted with rubies. This thing has, in theory, a crit multiplier of 10. On top of that, we're going to add in a bunch of buffs. So we're going to add in ginger ale for extra crit chance. We're going to add in matcha rock candy for extra crit chance and extra attack. We're going to equip iridium bands, which is 10% power, and the critical strike jade rings, 2 of them each, to get even more. And before we're going to go for the crit, we're going to equip the warrior ring, kill a few enemies to get plus 10. So then we're going to have plus 15 attack. And then on top of this, today is specifically the desert festival. So we're gonna go run over to the desert festival here and go get plus 3 more attack by eating a food buff from the chef. I believe is extremely sharp cheddar and crystal syrup. This will give us plus 3 attack, plus 1 luck, increasing our crit chance by even more and increasing our attack by even more. So basically, we are working here with plus 8 attack, plus 18 attack once the warrior ring comes, a very high damage club with a very ridiculous amount of crit power. How much damage do you think we're actually going to do? Because I have a bunch of testing bugs down here. And we're just going to put on the ring. We're going to kill a few. You saw a crit right there. We have plus 10 attack now. So we're going to switch our rings and then just swing at these guys. I see 6,700 in there. 6,400. We got to get some more damage upgrades. So it's kind of just like a really ridiculous amount of damage. There's a 6,000. For those who don't know, nothing in this game has that high of a cap in terms of HP at all. There was a 7,000 in there. Nothing's even close to that much HP. You will straight up one-shot it. Sure, I'm specifically doing this against bugs that has an increased damage, but even without it, you will just one-shot royal serpents no matter how long they are. Now, why is this practical? Or how is this practical? Surely you're not just gonna run around with this setup and just ring swap the entire time to one-shot things. Sure, you're not gonna always have all these luck buffs. You're not gonna have everything. So how does this work in, let's say, a perfection run where you're trying to kill as many enemies as possible, especially for the slime charmer? Well, apparently 1.6 is bugging. I have a few weapons. I just have a galaxy hammer. It just has crit chance on it. I got the iridium needle and the dwarf dagger. You can do this with basically anything. This will probably be my new ring setup for perfection. I'm just gonna have one magnet ring with the jade or the aqua ring. I only care about critting at this point. And then I also have the aqua ring with the burglar's ring, which is I'm gonna need that for ghosts. So we have basically just crit chance. We're just spec'd into like just straight up crit chance. That's the only thing I care about. I'm gonna pop a monster must so we have more enemies to do this in Skull Caverns with. But I'm gonna go to Skull Caverns here real quick and just run around and hit monsters. Basically, if I crit, I don't have animation canceling on. If I crit, anything that's not a Royal Serpent is going to die, even with the Galaxy Hammer. And this isn't even the best weapon for it. The Dragon's Tooth Hammer is. So who cares about comboing when you can get your crit chance so high? You can even increase it more with the statue if you want. I don't even have Magic Rock Candy on. Or on animation canceling, but like, who cares? Just run at things and crit them and kill them. This is the dangerous Skull Caverns too. You can still use the club combo if you want. The reason you don't care about the club combo in this situation is because it can't crit. But it's like, I'm one-shotting everything. As long as you crit. And this is even more potent when it comes to stuff like the iridium needle that has a very high base just chance in general. I love how the first one I hit just doesn't crit. As long as you crit, you're killing it. Kind of wild. And this is the dwarf sword. This is essentially the galaxy sword, but I have the 50 crit power on it. So ideally, this is what I would go for. That just crit for 800. It's like not the best base crit chance, but if you crit, you're killing everything. Even swords are broken with this. It's like I never thought I would come a day in a perfection run where if I get the dwarf hammer or the dragon's tooth cutlass while I'm doing volcano runs, I'm probably going to end up using it. Just because I want to put on the 70 I want to put on the 25 crit power, just any crit power, because it increases the damage of it by so significantly. But you can see my point. Like, any weapon that I'm using, I will just one-shot. And sure, you can say, oh, but you have the level 10 Desperado perk. Yeah, but getting level 10 combat is, like, not that bad. And you can just use 2 weapons. Like, I'll probably end up buying the Galaxy Hammer, enchanting it with Triple Ruby, doing my normal stuff. And then after I'm done getting level 10, I just switch to crit. And just go straight crit. And that's what I'll end up doing. To recap, for those who missed it, because I'm streaming on Twitch. Yeah, these weapons can do a stupid amount of damage. Get our crit buffs right there. Go in here. Consume our lovely ginger ale and our magic rock candy. We're going to warp back to the desert here and eat our lovely elf quesadilla with extremely sharp cheddar and cherry soup. Warp back to the farm. Equip 1 warrior ring and this ring. Technically, you don't have to do either. Get the warrior ring buff as so. Equip said double damage rings. And then hit a big crowd. And you hit for crit for about 6k. 6 to 7k, depending on how high you roll. That's a lot of damage. I love how busted this game is.